I'm here with Femke Smit, a fabulous Dutch vocalist who spends a couple of months a year in Brazil because she immersed herself totally in Brazilian music. That's actually the place where we got to know each other a little bit better. We kind of knew each other from the Dutch jazz scene, but in Brazil we really connected because I was there and you showed me all these amazing samba places. And we'll get to this later in this podcast. But first of all, I want to welcome you and thanks for coming to my house to talk.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Tell me, first of all, we have something very interesting in common, and that's that both our fathers were opera singers. Mm-hmm. So we both actually emerged from classical music and later became interested in other forms of music. How did it go with you?
Well, I remember that when I was younger, in our house there was always music, but it was only classical music. My dad was quite strict in that, where he said that was the only real music. Yeah. Maybe you recognize that.
Yes, very recognizable. Well, yeah.
But I remember always being around music. For me, the sound of an orchestra tuning is a comfort that I can't explain. It's home to me. The smell of the dressing room in the Stopera is home. So it was always there. The music was always there. The singing was always there. I was always singing along as a little girl. My mom was singing L'amour est un oiseau. And then I was 5-6 years old and I was singing along, and it was always such a big part of my childhood. Yeah.
Very recognizable. Although I think the difference is my father stopped singing at when I was very young, and I never experienced him live at home, yes, and sometimes in restaurants, but I've not experienced him performing at opera houses. How was that with you? So you saw him live?
Yeah, many times. We would we would go on vacation when he would play abroad. We would go on vacation to the country where he would play, and we would go see the show. And also in Amsterdam, I saw him many times. I saw him perform so many times. And my mom, who's also a classical singer, they even performed together a few times. I remember Pélias et Mélisande by Debussy, that they played together. And they once played Hans en Grietje, Hansel and Gretel.
Yeah.
There's an opera of Hansel and Gretel. And they played together in that. So for me, it was very much on stage that I saw them, and that I especially saw my father perform. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, amazing.
And when you, how did your singing come about?
I guess from a very young age, I was always singing. I mean, there's videos of me when I was 4 years old, and my sister was just a few weeks old. My parents wanted to film my sister, and I would jump in front of her and be like, I'm going to sing a song. And then I would start singing to get the attention. So from a very young age, I was always singing. I remember making up songs in the car to friends when I was 5-6 years old. And singing was always a part of me. But I started lessons when I was about 12 years old. I had piano lessons from my 6th on, and then I stopped having piano lessons at 12, and I switched to singing. Still regret stopping the piano lessons, actually.
Yeah, that's what you hear a lot.
But I'm glad that I started singing, and I've been singing ever since.
And you said that your father was quite like classical music is the only music, the rest is something else.
Yeah.
But already when you were that young, did you want to sing other kinds of music than classical music, and how did you react to that?
I think when I was really young, I didn't really distinguish different styles. It was just music. and I only knew classical music, so that was it. But I do remember when I was like 10, 11 years old, I had a radio in my room and I would listen to pop music, and I would do that secretly. When I heard someone come up the stairs, I would turn it off because I thought it was not allowed. It was not music. And he would actually talk about it that way. So I remember that at one point they found out that I was listening to pop music. And there was an announcement made at a party with my family. Ladies and gentlemen, no, it was like, I think we were like 10 people, but they would say like, yeah, we've recently found out that Femke is listening to pop music. And I felt so ashamed of myself. And when I think back to that now, I'm like, wow, that's really, that is so judgmental. Let me enjoy what I enjoy. Yeah. So, and then I got into a period where I was really into hip hop, because that was what he hated most. I still love hip hop. It was.
And the Arnage started. Yeah.
But I think that was also to piss him off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And your dad, like our dads, they're gone for many years. But if your dad would see you in Brazil, like I have seen. Singing samba with the greatest Brazilian musicians, what do you think he would have said? Would he be proud, or what do you think?
Yeah, he would have been incredibly proud.
Yeah.
He would have cried. Absolutely. Yeah. He was a very sentimental man. He would have cried his eyes out. Because I think what he would see is that when I do that, I am in my element. I am really letting my voice speak, and that was something that really moved him. So I'm sure he would be incredibly proud. It makes me sad sometimes
that he has not witnessed that. Yeah,
that he hasn't witnessed that.
Yeah. That's also a feeling I recognize.
Yeah, he's missing out, and I'm missing out on being able to share that musical experience with him, because we had a lot of differences and problems, but what we really shared was our shared love of music and the way we experienced music together. So I remember this is my last memory of him. The last time I saw him, he got a DVD of this Pellias et Mélisande recording that I was present at when I went to see that when I was 6, and then when I was 23 he got a DVD of that performance. And I remember that we watched it together, and at exactly the same moments, and it was mostly in the harmony, that we would be like, oh, that's beautiful. And I recognized myself so much in him in that moment, that all of our differences didn't matter that much, because he gave me that. He gave me that passion and that hunger for music. And I'll be forever grateful for that experience. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And also to, again, make the connection with Brazilian music, which is your big thing, so to speak. I mean, if you talk about Debussy and Ravel and all these beautiful impressionistic composers, the harmony is something which I think it's so. I think it resembles. There's a lot of connection with Brazilian music, right?
Yeah,
these
absolutely.
harmonic movements,
the surprises,
the
harmonic
surprises.
Exactly. Like you think we're gonna go there, but no.
That's
and that just
it's great, huh?
Touches me. That just that gets to me every time.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. And how did your love start? I mean, I'm making giant leaps here, but I know you graduated as a jazz singer at the conservatory in Amsterdam. Yeah. And how did the love for Brazilian music? How did it start? How did this?
So the first memory that I have of Brazilian music is when I was 18. It was my mom's birthday, and I didn't know what to get her. So I went to it's this little shop called the Wereldwinkel, where they have things from all over the world. And I found a CD, a compilation CD of Brazilian music. It was called Brazilian Lounge. And I gave it to her, and we played it on her birthday. And I loved it so much that she never saw it again. I was in my room singing along phonetically to this music. I thought it was amazing. So that was 18 years old. Then fast forward to 2-3 years later, when I was 20, 21, I think I started the preliminary year when I was 20. When you study jazz, it's quite common to also sing some bossa nova. So I started with Água de Beber. And Água de Beber is a beautiful song, but the translation in English is not so brilliant, if I may say so.
I agree.
I was not a fan of the translation, so I decided I want to do it in Portuguese. And I remember that first time I was just mimicking the sounds, and I didn't understand a word of what I was singing in the beginning, but then I translated it, and I thought it was such a beautiful lyric in Portuguese. I just felt like something clicked. It worked. I understood what was happening. I understood that this was something I was supposed to be doing. So I remember I called José Koning.
Yeah.
Who back in the days was the teacher for the Brazilian semester at the conservatory. That was in the third year, but I was in my preliminary year, and I was like, she told me like, yeah, but if you wait until the third year, and I said, no, I don't want to wait. I want to start now.
Yeah, why wait? Now is the moment.
Why wait? Yeah. Let's go. But I remember being so nervous that first lesson. I had to go to Haarlem, Overveen, where she lives, and I was so nervous. But I felt that it was right, that this was what I wanted to do, and this was what I was going to focus on. And the years after that, I still sang jazz, and I really realized that in jazz theory and in jazz timing, there was a lot to learn and a lot to how do you say that, mature my musicality. Yeah. But Brazilian music was really my focus from then on. I learned to speak Portuguese. I went to Brazil quite a few times.
Yeah, when did you go for the first time?
The first time was a study trip with José and a few other students and teachers. And I remember very vividly that we got to Rio, and I felt like I was a flower that was just starting to blossom there. I realized like, wow, this place suits me so well. Yeah. This place, this is what I want. This is it. Yeah. This is it. So we learned a lot those weeks. And I went back the year after with my band. It was called Mrs. Smit and the Boys from Brazil.
Dutch musicians.
Dutch musicians. It was my first band, first people I played Brazilian music with. And we just bought tickets to Brazil, and we decided, okay, we're going to play there. So we called everyone we could think of and just started emailing everybody we knew or didn't know, and we ended up, we went there and we had 10 gigs planned, but like small things in bars and stuff. And then I think 6 out of those 10 were canceled while we were there. Yeah. And in the end, we played 12 gigs. And it was amazing. We were there for a month. And it was amazing. It was mayhem. It was crazy, but it was so much fun. And I learned so much about Brazil and about music. And what I learned there is that when everything goes wrong in Brazil, it's a cliche, but it's true. A lot of things are not very organized. So a lot of things went wrong, but we always found a way. And it's really made me way more chill in life in general, because I know like everything can go wrong and you'll still manage.
Yeah.
You'll make it work.
You'll be fine. Yeah.
You'll make it work. So yeah, those were my first experiences. And then after I graduated at the conservatory, I went to Brazil for 3 months. I went to Rio for 3 months alone. 25 years old. Had no idea what I was going to do there. But I decided like, okay, I want to learn. I want to be there. I have to check it out. I took dancing lessons. I joined a really big percussion group playing maracatu, which is a style that here nobody knows, but it's incredible.
Yeah, from the north, right?
It's from the north.
Yeah.
Yeah.
North of Brazil.
North of Brazil. It's incredible. So I just went on that adventure. I just did it. When I think back to it now, I sometimes tend to think of myself as someone who is not very courageous. But when I think back, I'm like, wow, that's really courageous. I just went and I just called these people like, hey, I want to join the percussion band. I don't really speak Portuguese that well and I've never played any of these instruments, but let's go.
That's
and
amazing.
I just did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I learned a lot. It was also the loneliest 3 months in my life, actually. I remember I had one friend there who passed away very suddenly on the first day of Carnival. And I mourned that by myself and felt very lost and lonely for a few weeks. But I went and did it.
You just kept going.
Yeah, I kept going, and there was so much music to comfort me, and yeah, that's.
But it's actually the incredible passion and love for that music which kept you going.
Yeah, for sure. I always say I'm
and the people.
I'm absolutely in love with Brazilian music. Absolutely in love, like head over heels.
Yeah.
So it's a strong love. It started out as infatuation, but it's grown very strong, and I have a basis in the music that has always been what has attracted me to Brazil. That's always been what has sustained me. I mean, I live off of this music that brings me so much joy. It's really a love story for me, and yeah,
it's beautiful. And how much time did it take before you really spoke Portuguese at the level you speak it now, which is fluent?
That's taken a long time. I mean, I think since about 6 or 7 years, I speak quite well. But now I just came back from 6 months in Rio, and I've grown so much in my, especially in the broadness of my vocabulary, in my accent when I speak. There's a difference in the accent when I sing and the accent when I speak. When I speak, you can hear that I'm not from there. When I sing, you can't. And I think that's because singing, you prepare and you know what's going to happen. When you speak, it's out of the blue. It's in the moment, and you can't always do everything perfectly. I also don't need to. I've always said that when I sing, I don't want my accent to distract from the music. The music is the most important thing. Yeah. And I don't want the fact that I'm not from there to distract from the music that I want to, the stories that I want to tell through the music. But of course, when I speak, that doesn't really matter to me. I mean,
that you hear that you have a slightly
yeah,
Dutch
of course.
accent.
I'm not from there.
No.
I will never pretend that I'm from
Same
there.
now with our English.
Yeah,
it's
obvious
all
right.
We're not.
As long as I know how to communicate.
Yeah.
That's the point.
But when you sing, whatever style of Brazilian music, you are like, people cannot distinguish that you would be a foreigner.
Yeah, usually, yeah.
What an achievement.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
That's actually,
yeah.
that's amazing. Because that really blew my mind, and that's why I was so fascinated. So I was in Rio a couple of months ago. I was touring in Brazil, and so you happen to be there for that half year you spend there.
Yeah.
And like every day, you showed me all these incredible samba gatherings all over the city in Rio.
Yeah.
But not only that, whenever you would show up, the musicians were sitting there at the Roda, the Samba, and I want you to explain a little bit more about that later. But they sit around a table playing music, and whenever someone noticed you, they were like, "Hey, Femke, join us." I mean, you're in the heart of Brazilian music and world-class musicians. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
They know you. Everybody knows you there now.
Yeah. I feel like I've really. It's really something that I've constructed over the years. I always say I have never asked to sing in Brazil. I've never invited myself. I've always just showed up and been myself.
Yeah.
And when I tell people that I sing and they see that I'm not, that I take that very seriously, that I speak Portuguese, that I know my stuff, they usually ask me to sing. And when I sung once, they usually ask me to sing again the next time. But I've never gone to an event with the idea, I need to sing and you have to let me. Because I don't feel that's my place. I am in awe of the musicians that I've been able to connect with musically there. There's also Rio de Sambas where I know that it's not my place to sing. Where they don't ask me to sing, and I know that it's not my place. Because I'm not there, or because it is such a pure expression of Black culture.
Yeah.
That it is not my place to partake in that. That I need to sit there and learn, or I need to stand there and sing along from the sidelines and learn, watch and observe and learn. And that's always been my objective, and that's always been the way that I enter a space where I talk about it as a spiritual practice, and it kind of is for me. I always enter a space with respect for the music and the musicians and the culture, and when I'm invited, I love to be part of it. But when I am an observer, I enjoy myself just as much, and it brings me so much knowledge to be on the sidelines and looking in.
Yeah. So there's no ego there. It's just love for music and whatever happens.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Absolutely.
Bless you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Because that's also something I noticed. We went to one of those, it was a huge gathering, a little bit outside the center of Rio, a little bit far away from downtown. And I think, this samba world, you can talk about it for hours, of course.
Yeah.
But what I noticed, there's a lot of hierarchy there.
Yeah.
They were like older people.
Yeah.
They had also had a kind of, they were wearing kind of collars.
Oh, yeah. Samba do Trabalhador.
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah. Yeah, so absolutely. There's a hierarchy in the sense, it's not about who's better. It's about respecting the fact that people that have been here longer have a lot of experience that we can learn from. So when you go to a Rio de Samba, especially in the outside of the center, in the periferia, how they call it, like the periphery.
Yeah.
You have the velha guarda, which means like the old guard. It means the elderly people that are part of samba schools, and they come with a group. They dress up in the colors of their school, and they are honored on stage because they have dedicated so much of their lives to samba and to the tradition. And it's definitely very common for young musicians to really look up to these older musicians, older dancers, people in this organization, because the ones that come before you have so much knowledge. They know so much.
I mean, I think most people are against hierarchy, but this is a beautiful form
but
of...
it's so a beautiful way. It's definitely, it's very respectful towards the elderly. It's very respectful towards the knowledge that is gathered over time, and of course these older, the old guard is very respectful towards younger musicians, but they also know that they have knowledge to share.
Pass on their experience.
You have to pass on the experience. And I've had experiences there where I it's very easy to get into a conversation with someone in Brazil. So I got into this conversation with an older man. I think he was about 80 years old, and he started telling me, like, I remember when Grupo Fundo de Quintal just started and they were playing in my neighborhood. And I'm like, this is a man that knows. He talked about Cartola, which is a huge composer in the samba. That he knew him. He went to see him play. Yeah. He ran into him at Roda de Sambas back in the days, and that is such that's such beautiful information to be able to receive, to be in the presence of someone who has such a deep understanding of what this music means to people, what it means to me. That's forever inspirational. It will always stay with me.
Yeah, and it's important. I always listen to people who are more experienced than I am.
Yeah.
In whatever field,
Absolutely.
And that's. I mean, I'm not that old, but I mean, I always tell young people, like, nothing beats experience.
No.
And if you don't listen to experienced people, you miss out on a lot of opportunities, and also could be a big time saver as well. Whether it's in music, whatever thing in life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, I've learned so much from older generations, just telling me about their experiences and telling me what they've seen, what they've experienced, and it's. Yeah, I think that's such a big part of being a musician, is being open to other musicians, which can be of all generations. I mean, I remember I was in Brasilia for a week to play, and I went to this roda de choro. Choro is another Brazilian music style. And there was this 13-year-old boy playing the bandolim and playing incredibly. Yeah. So you can also be inspired by the younger generation.
Oh yeah.
Because I saw the hunger in his eyes, and I could feel that he was there with his dad, and his dad was a guitar player, and the joy of being able to play with your family, and so you can be inspired by all generations, but never because someone is older, forget that they have so much to share with you and so much to show you.
Yeah. And you mentioned about the samba schools, because that's maybe a nice thing, because most people who samba is like, it's a little bit Brazilian music and Brazilian stuff. We dance to it and all of that, but it's a whole world on its own. And the samba schools, they actually they're competitive, and at the carnival, it's like a contest. Yeah. Because most people see carnival in Brazil, like everybody's having
only
a great
celebration.
Yeah. But there is a serious competition behind it, right?
Absolutely, it's a huge competition. And people live towards that all year long. It is for many people really their highlight of the year. Everyone has their own school that they root for. Brazilians are big into football, but you have your football team and you have your samba school.
There are two
Two
religions.
It's not like people will get into arguments over their samba schools, but you do have a samba school that you love most and that you root for during the carnival. Absolutely. What happens is that every year there are a few songs that compete to be in the carnival for a certain school. These songs are played in a big event, usually like 5-6 months before the big parade in February, and then the people have to sing along with these songs, and the song that they feel brings out most in the audience is the song that wins. And then the song that wins is played at Carnival, and it's played in a row for about an hour. So the same song for about an hour. They repeat it and repeat it and repeat it, because the parade per school is an hour. And then in the school, in the parade, you have different sections. You have the baianas. Baianas are women that are from the north of Brazil, Bahia, and they have a certain type of traditional wear, traditional clothing. You have the velha guarda, which we talked about earlier. It's the old guard. They always have their own ala, you call it, like their own section. And then, of course, you have the huge, how do you call them? Carts? Yeah.
Yeah.
Praalwagens.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like these vans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge.
The pictures we know. I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And on that, they usually have, so they have a subject. Every school chooses their subject. So, for instance, last year there was one school that honored a certain composer, Arlindo Cruz. There was another school that honored the people from the northeast of Brazil. So it had to do with the northeastern culture. Sometimes they honored the Amazon or specific gods from the Afro-Brazilian religion. So they have these subjects, and they dress everyone and everything up around this subject. It's a beautiful experience. It's really,
what a tradition, huh?
It's incredible.
It's a world. It's a world.
It's really a world in itself. But the interesting thing is that outside of this carnival world, there is also the world of carnival in the favelas, which, yes, most summer schools come from the favela, but most people in the favela itself celebrate carnival there, and they have all different traditions that we know nothing about. I only just now found out that there's this whole culture around. It's called bate-bola. It's these huge kind of. They make suits out of feathers, and they hit the ground with a ball, and it's hard to explain, but
Wow.
but be aware that what you think you know about Brazilian culture is really only the tip of the iceberg, because I've been going there for 15 years now, and every time I'm there, I'm experiencing and discovering new worlds, new for me. They've been there
Amazing.
For many years, and these cultures are so strong. It is incredible, the depth of all of these musical styles, all of these cultural expressions.
Wow. And yeah, could you live there permanently in Brazil?
I tend to say that I'm in a toxic relationship with Rio, by which I want to express that it's the love is strong, the passion is very strong, but it's also hard on me, it's also hard on everybody there, actually.
It's a harsh place to survive.
It's a very harsh place to survive. The financial insecurity that people suffer there, the violence, it takes away a lot of the freedom that we have here in the Netherlands. Here I'm free to take a walk at night alone as a woman.
You don't need to take a taxi.
Yeah, and that is impossible there.
Yeah.
That is, or it's not impossible. Many people are forced to do it, but it's dangerous. Yeah. So for me, in terms of safety, I wouldn't want to live there. But also musically, I've seen that musicians really struggle to make ends meet. And these are, I'm talking about the best musicians in the country are struggling to make ends meet. Which means that if I would go there and I would want to make my money making music, I first of all would have to work 3 times as hard as I have to do here, where here I live comfortably off of music. But and it's not that I don't want to work hard, that's not the thing, but there are many people there already working their ass off. And it is such a privilege for me to be able to go there. Why should I go there and take work from people that absolutely need it? It makes no sense to me. It makes no sense to me. I'm there to learn. I have a lot to learn still. I'm very excited about learning a lot still. But I've realized that here is my home, and what I can do here is be an ambassador for Brazilian music. I can introduce people to this incredible culture, this beautiful music that is, for me, I specialize really mostly in Samba. I organize a Roda de Samba every month, which means that as musicians, we sit around a table and we play there, and our audience dances around us, they sing along, they clap along, and it is a way of connecting between people. It's a way of expressing joy that just really grabbed me when I was in Brazil, because as Dutch people, we don't know what this full expression of because it's not only expression of joy, it's expression of pain, it's expression of sadness, it's expression of emotion in general, and joy, and being able to and being able to connect to others in that, and connect to music in that. For me, that is, I'm addicted to that. I need that because it fits me so well. I am a very expressive and emotional person, and I mean that in a most positive sense of the word. We tend to see emotional as something bad, but I feel deeply, and I'm proud of that. Am I always happy with that? No, but I'm proud of it. So for me, it is such a pure expression of emotion and such a healthy way to express it. I think Dutch people need to hear this, and Brazilian people come because they miss it. They miss it. They feel that we're holding back so much.
I'm so with you here because I travel the world, and there are so many experiences abroad which I would like to introduce here. Yeah. Because I think we live in a comfortable country. It's almost impossible to starve to death here, but at the same time, this makes things too easy, and I think. Sometimes it's not only the Netherlands, it's all, let's say Western Europe. Yeah. And maybe also, let's stick to Western Europe. I think people miss out on so many things.
Yeah, it makes it easy to disconnect from others, right? If you don't need community to survive, then you have no necessity to connect to others. Yeah. No necessity to build community, and I for one really believe that having a community is such a vital thing in life.
Yeah.
Such a vital thing. And for me, Brazilian music brings that into my life here. I am sure there are many other ways. I mean, there are people who find it in gaming and meeting other people worldwide with the same interests.
On Twitch.
Yeah. There are people who find it in pottery. There are people who find it in religion. There are many ways to find community, and for me, music is my way to communicate with others, to connect to others, and I have a very strong need and desire to connect to others.
Beautiful. What a beautiful person. These Roda de Sambas here in the Netherlands, how often do they take place? Because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you were the one who kind of introduced them here in the Netherlands, right?
Well, no, I have to really credit the generation that came before me. There was definitely a very lively Brazilian scene already, and I'm talking about the 90s now. I was just a little girl. I didn't know anything about Brazilian music yet, but there was the Canecão, which I've heard so many stories about.
I played there. It was one of the first clubs I played.
Amazing.
Yeah. Downtown Amsterdam.
Yeah. So there was a lively Brazilian scene.
That's true.
And there were roda de sambas going on. I think when I came back from this trip after my exam, this trip of 3 months, this was a period where there was not so much going on. And I needed a roda de samba in my life. Because I felt that, okay, I can live in the Netherlands, that's fine, but I cannot live without a roda de samba. So I decided to do it, to start it, and when we started, some other projects started coming up over the past few years. Some other roda de sambas have also come up, and I think that's beautiful. People sometimes talk about, it's competition. For me, yes, maybe in terms of we may have a little less public because of it. On the other hand, I think it's so important that there's more samba. More samba is better. So let's share that stage. Let's share that experience. And every roda de samba, which I think is really beautiful, every roda de samba has its own energy and its own repertoire. Whether you decide it like that or not, it happens. It grows like that. And with that also its own audience. So within this small scene in the Netherlands, there are various roda de sambas, and we all do our own thing, and we do it slightly differently, and we appreciate each other. And I go to all these other rodas, they come to our party, and it's a very warm community, in my opinion. That's
a beautiful thing. That's also actually something I noticed in Brazil among musicians. I mean, you go to a lot of countries where people are, there's there's competition, and in Brazil...
Dog eat dog.
Yeah. And in Brazil, when you hear musicians talk about their colleagues, they hardly gossip. They're always
kind love.
They respect each other so much.
Absolutely.
That's another thing we can learn from, because there's there's so much gossiping going on, and there's a lot to learn from that country.
Absolutely. No, it's I've always felt, and that's really something I've learned in Brazil, that when you play, you need to be there in that moment from the first second on, and it doesn't matter. You can start with the wrong note, but if you're there, then that's better.
You're present.
Than playing the right note and not being there. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, if you do it out of a pure intention, no ego, that means. It is about the community effort. Then there is no competition because you're doing it together. And you have the same goal in mind, which is sharing this experience. So people sometimes, it happens at the Holland Samba, you always invite, if there's friends who are singers, you always invite them to sing a few songs. And people sometimes afterwards ask me, like, aren't you sad that you got to sing less songs because they were invited? And I'm like, no, not at all. I am happy that we got to share that musical moment, and I wouldn't want to miss it for the world, because it's not about me. It's not about me showing what I'm capable of doing. It's about together sharing a musical experience. And in that, when I sing with Lilian Vieira, for example, who's a good friend, but also a big inspiration here in the Netherlands, she lifts me up, and I lift her up. And I'm so honored that I get to lift her up. So we need to stop thinking in these terms of who's better and who got the most attention and who did it best. That's not the focus. The focus is being together in a musical experience and lifting each other up.
Wonderful. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it's wonderful. Wow. And the Roda de Samba's here, because there are some great Brazilian musicians residing here in the Netherlands. Mainly
in plain sight.
Yeah. And in Rotterdam there are quite a few. Here in Amsterdam. So when you organize these Roda, or when they take place, what is like? Are there also a lot of Dutch musicians who perform at the Rodas, or is mostly Brazilian musicians?
It depends. There are 2 Rodas right now that I think are fully Brazilian. Bands are completely Brazilian. It's usually musicians that didn't study at a conservatory. They just learned to play music in Brazil or here. Experience is learning from experience. And then there are a few rodas where there are some Dutch people, or we have a German drummer, for instance, who are usually people that have studied music, and while studying music, fell in love with Brazilian music and really dove into that, because it is difficult music to play, and when you're not from there and when you haven't grown up with that tradition, it is quite challenging to play it. So in my project, it's called Roda da Hollanda. For the Dutch people, that's Roda da Hollanda. For the English people, Roda da Hollanda. We have quite some jazz musicians who fell in love with Brazilian music. I'm one of them. And then we have a few Brazilians who also studied music or have already played in Samba for years and years. So it's kind of a mix.
Yeah, but it's true. I mean, a lot of, like, I'm one of those Dutch musicians who really loves Brazilian music, and I've been very fortunate to play there a lot with the greatest musicians there and learning a lot. But, I think that you're here at another level, because when I saw you in Rio performing with these people that they invite you at these rodas, it's just because I knew that you were Dutch, but otherwise, you're really so immersed in that culture. And that amazed me so much.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I always find this a bit more difficult to talk about in the Netherlands than in Brazil, because in Brazil, everybody always says, it was a past life. It was a past life. You've already been here. And my Dutch side, which is very down to earth, can't really make sense of it. But I have to say that when I sing samba, I don't feel Dutch. I feel like a 60-something-year-old Brazilian lady who has seen it all, who has gotten children, who is divorced, who has seen it all happen. And I can't really explain that. It feels like it's older than me. And that's why it's not a persona. It's really part of me. I feel like I can fully be myself when I sing this music. I can be myself in a life experience that's greater than the life I've lived, and this is always hard to explain because I can't prove anything, and I don't even know if I believe in this, but I feel it. I remember the first time I saw a Roda de Samba in Rio, and I cried all night, and I didn't know what was happening to me, but I just kept on crying. There was so much emotion there, and I knew, like, this is it. This is it. I needed to see this, and now I need to do it. Yeah,
but that's exactly what I noticed because, look, I was kind of fortunate to see you in your element.
In my natural habitat.
In Brazil. I mean, of course, you know, people know about Femke being so passionate about Brazilian music, but I've really experienced you there performing with these people, and that's exactly what I noticed. And that really blew my mind. Yeah. That was fantastic. Yeah. And what's... the Roda's here in the Netherlands, where can people find them and where can they find you?
So you have Roda da Holanda, Roda da Holanda. Holanda you write with one L. We have Instagram, we have Facebook, we have a website, rodadaholanda.com. So there you can see our events. We play every 3 months now in Rotterdam. And from November on, we'll probably be in Amsterdam bi-monthly. And then besides that, we have our gigs at festivals, and we play at weddings sometimes too. Especially Dutch and Brazilian weddings are really fun because the Brazilians always sing along so passionately that the Dutch people also are, how do you say that, dragged into it, and it's incredible. But yeah, so we play quite a lot. We're gonna play quite a lot over the next year.
Fantastic.
And me, I'm a bit harder to find. I'm not very. We're gonna talk about that sometime. I'm not so good at promoting myself. I'm good at being part of another project. And really believing in that project, but to put myself in the forefront, I think it's a strength and a weakness because I've never put myself in the forefront, and because of that, I think many musicians love to play with me because I feel like it's a shared experience. The community comes back in, but I also feel that because I don't do that, not everybody knows what I do. And all the different sides to me musically. And I think it has maybe made my work a bit harder sometimes. Or it has made that I'm not invited to tables that I maybe should be on. So I'm going to work on that. But anyway, my Instagram is Super Femko.
Super Femko.
Yeah, Femko, Super Femko. And there you can find a lot of the music that I make and upcoming gigs.
Wonderful. Yeah, you know, it's like, I mean, I have this podcast, the other podcast, Self-Management for Musicians, because I'm kind of good at music business. And I want to stress I'm more a pianist than a businessman. But
Absolutely.
I happen to,
No, but I think you find a beautiful balance in that. It really inspires me what you do, because you are definitely foremost a pianist.
Yeah.
But your business side, make sure that you can be a pianist all over the world, and that you can discover, and that you can be inspired, and that you can learn. And one of the things that really stuck with me when we met in Rio and when I saw your concert, which was a beautiful concert, is that afterwards you said at one point, like, yeah, there was this one point where the bass player and the drummer, they did something, and I didn't really understand rhythmically what was happening, but I recorded it, so I'm going to listen back to it and I'm going to check that out. And I was like, wow, what a beautiful way of being critical, of being able to criticize yourself, to also realize I'm on stage with these people, I deserve to be on stage with these people, but also really have this hunger to grow. I thought that was beautiful. So you really inspired me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, you know, after over 100 countries and performing with the thousands of musicians and stuff like that, you know, I know nothing, you know.
Yeah.
And that's actually what I wanted to say also to conclude this wonderful conversation is, you know, because when you are also teaching about music business, of course, a lot of musicians come on your path who are all so concerned about their career. And in general, what I find a dilemma also is that on one hand, it's important to be out there and take care, you know, TBC, taking care of business. On the other hand, what sometimes really bothers me, also speaking about myself, you know, that so many musicians are so self-absorbed. It's also, actually, it's kind of sometimes an egocentric thing, you know, and it's also a way to survive. You know, there are many, but that's what it is. And what I really appreciate so much with you is that I don't sense nothing whatsoever of any ego. That really touches me, actually.
I have an ego. I have insecurities.
Of course.
I have had a lot of anxiety around failure. But I think because of that, I've had to learn that I at one point realized that my insecurities in making music do not have any place on stage, because the music is the main character.
Yeah.
And I love music, and I need to respect and love music enough to leave myself out of the equation at that point. It's not about me. It's about the experience that I can have together with others in the music. And that, taking that away, taking myself out of that equation, it gives me some peace, because when I'm in the equation, I'm absolutely very insecure.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to cloud my musical message.
Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. Yeah, and again, I'll